Jungkook wakes up to a stranger beside him, not Taehyung. What happened last night? And why does everyone suddenly act like it's normal? Who the hell are you? Jungkook shot up in bed, heart pounding like a bass drum against his ribs. His voice echoed off the apartment walls, raw with disbelief and fury. The woman beside him blinked, startled but calm, as if she had every right to be there. Long brunette hair fell over her bare shoulders and her lips parted slightly, not in guilt, but in confusion. Jungkook, it's me. He jerked away as though burned. The sheets tangled around his waist, damp with sweat, the cold air of the room slicing through the remnants of sleep. It was early morning, maybe 6, the glow from the window barely golden. Outside, Seoul was just beginning to stir. But inside this bedroom, reality had splintered. He stumbled out of bed, grabbing the hoodie draped over the chair without even checking if it was his. His breathing was shallow, rapid. Where's Taehyung? He demanded, his voice low now but no less lethal. The woman stood slowly. Her features were familiar, hauntingly so. You don't remember anything from last night? She asked. I remember Taehyung saying he'd be here when I woke up, Jungkook snapped, turning toward the mirror as if needing proof this was real. His reflection stared back, rumpled hair, wild eyes, confusion painted like war across his face. We had plans. He said we'd talk. He said he wouldn't leave me alone again. The woman bit her lip, her gaze softening. You kept calling his name, she whispered. All night? Even while you were asleep. That made Jungkook flinch. He sat down, suddenly weak, elbows on his knees, hands clutching his head. He was trying to remember anything. What did they drink last night? Did someone spike it? Was this a prank? But there were no cameras, no laughter from behind a wall. Just the ticking of the clock and the steady ache rising in his chest. He turned to the woman again. I don't even know your name. I'm Mina, she said. We met at the showcase after party. You don't remember? The after party. His jaw tightened. He remembered the lights, the crowd, the way Taehyung disappeared after someone whispered something in his ear. Jungkook had waited at the bar for an hour before going home alone. Or so he thought. Mina sat on the edge of the bed, still covering herself with the comforter. Her expression wasn't seductive, it was sad. You were drunk, but not out of control. We talked. You said you felt invisible, like Taehyung had stopped seeing you. That he laughed more with Jimin now. Jungkook's fists clenched. I don't say things like that to strangers. You didn't treat me like one, Mina said quietly. His stomach twisted. He wasn't the type to seek comfort in someone else's bed. Especially not when he was still trying to figure out what the hell was going on with Taehyung. He got up again, pacing now. Where's my phone? On the floor. Under the chair. She pointed and he retrieved it. The screen lit up 7 missed calls from Taehyung. A few messages. Hyung said something. I didn't mean to walk out. Please call me. Are you okay? I saw you leave with someone. I shouldn't have left. I'll wait for you at the studio. Jungkook stared at the messages, hands shaking. The timestamp was 3:47 a.m. That was around the time the room went black in his memory. His voice trembled. This wasn't supposed to happen. Mina didn't reply. He didn't even glance at her again. He grabbed his jeans, shoved them on, and stormed out, ignoring the way his vision blurred as he stepped into the hallway. The building was quiet, too early for drama. But inside his chest, it was a war zone. The cab ride to the studio was silent, except for the voice inside his head screaming questions. Why did Taehyung leave? Why didn't he stay? Why did he come back too late? And who the hell was this girl really? By the time Jungkook reached the studio, his heart was thundering. He expected Taehyung to be waiting inside with his usual bored, beautiful stare. But the room was dark. Empty. Only a single note was taped to the mic stand. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could watch you disappear and be okay. I was wrong. Beneath it was a drawing, 2 figures under a spotlight, one fading into the shadows. Taehyung's sketching style was unmistakable. Jungkook gripped the paper with both hands, breathing hard. There was no blood on the floor, but it felt like someone had been shot. He sat at the piano, the one Taehyung always leaned on when Jungkook practiced. His fingers hovered over the keys but didn't press. There was no song in his chest right now. Only static. Only guilt. The door creaked. He looked up. It was Jimin. He was dressed in black, a hoodie pulled low over his forehead, but his eyes were sharp. He's not coming back today, Jimin said. You shouldn't look for him right now. Jungkook stood, his voice hoarse. You knew. I tried to stop him from leaving the party. But he saw you with her, Jungkook. And you were laughing. I don't even remember laughing. You don't have to. He remembers enough for both of you. Jungkook's shoulders slumped. It wasn't what it looked like. Jimin walked closer, folding his arms. You sure about that? Because Taehyung's not. I didn't sleep with her. I swear. You kissed her. Silence swallowed the room. Jungkook's eyes widened. What? She posted a photo, then deleted it 20 minutes later. But not before a couple of staff saw it. You were holding her face like it was everything you ever wanted. Jungkook turned away, hands over his mouth. His whole body tensed. I thought he was done with me, he said through clenched teeth. He didn't talk to me for days. He said we'd talk last night, and then he vanished again. Jimin leaned against the console. Maybe he was scared. Maybe he was testing you. That's not fair. Neither is watching someone you love fall asleep beside a stranger. Jungkook collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. The weight of it hit him fully now, not just the confusion, but the damage. The fracture. The way one broken night could unravel years of quiet loyalty, of late-night laughter, of things never said aloud but always understood. He whispered almost to himself, tell him when he's ready. I'll explain everything. Jimin nodded. If he's ready. The room stayed quiet long after Jimin left. And Jungkook stayed there, not moving, not breathing deeply, just listening to the ghost of Taehyung's laughter echoing off the empty walls. The coffee shop was almost empty when Jungkook stepped inside. It was the one where they used to sneak off to during practice breaks. Taehyung always ordered something ridiculous like a rose latte while Jungkook stuck with Americanos. Today he ordered nothing. He just stood there, arms trembling, chest raw with an ache that hadn't faded since the studio. He had tried calling. Twice. Taehyung hadn't blocked him, but he might as well have. Every ring that wasn't answered felt like a slap to the face. He didn't even know if the guy was still in Seoul. And the only person who might know refused to speak to him unless he learned how to fix what he broke. Jimin's words still stung. Sharp. Unforgiving. Like Taehyung had left him with a court sentence and no defense attorney. So he waited. At the cafe. The way they used to wait for each other, unspoken, instinctive. And 2 hours later, Taehyung walked in. He wore a beige coat over a plain black tee, hands in his pockets, eyes heavy with lack of sleep and something else, betrayal. He didn't flinch when he saw Jungkook. He didn't smile either. He simply stopped walking and stared. You came, Jungkook said, voice hollow. I almost didn't, Taehyung replied, taking a seat at the booth without invitation. His movements were slow, deliberate, rehearsed like he had practiced them to seem unaffected. Jungkook sat across from him, not blinking. I didn't sleep with her. Taehyung didn't answer immediately. He looked out the window, watching people walk by with careless energy, backpacks bouncing, laughter echoing faintly. I know, he said eventually. Silence fell between them like a curtain. Thick. Waited. I didn't kiss her either, Jungkook added, leaning forward. Taehyung's jaw tightened. Then explain the photo. I don't remember it. I was drunk, she leaned in, maybe it looked like. She didn't lean in, Jungkook, Taehyung snapped, suddenly raising his voice. You held her face. You cupped her jaw the same way you've done to me 1,000 times, and your eyes, they weren't lost. They were focused. On her. Jungkook's stomach turned. I don't know why I did it. That's not good enough, Taehyung said coldly. I thought you were done with me, Jungkook exploded. You ignored me for a week. You laughed louder with Jimin. You left the after party without a word. What was I supposed to think? That I needed space. Taehyung stood now, drawing glances. I told you I was struggling. With all of it. With us. With the secrecy. With pretending that we're just bandmates while I fall asleep every night hoping you'll choose me for real. Jungkook's face paled. I did choose you. No, Taehyung whispered, leaning close across the table, eyes shimmering with rage and heartbreak. You chose someone else the second it got complicated. Jungkook couldn't breathe. I didn't want her. I wanted you. Taehyung shook his head. Then why didn't you say it when it mattered? He turned to leave. Jungkook grabbed his wrist. Don't do this again. Don't walk away and leave me wondering if I should keep breathing or disappear. That made Taehyung freeze. You don't know what it did to me, Jungkook continued. Waking up with a stranger and realizing I pushed the only person I ever loved away. I stared at the ceiling thinking maybe this was how it ends. Maybe I'm that idiot who loses everything because I can't say the right words when it counts. Taehyung swallowed. Then say them now. I love you, Jungkook said. I've loved you since we were kids and I hated you for being so effortless. I loved you the first time you cried on my shoulder and didn't pretend to be fine. I loved you even when you didn't love me back. Taehyung was trembling now visibly. And yet you kissed her. I didn't mean to. I didn't even realize it happened until I saw the photo. Jungkook's eyes were wet. I'm not asking you to forgive me now. I just want you to believe me. I was scared. I thought you were leaving and I panicked. I filled the hole with whatever I could find. It was stupid. But it wasn't because I stopped wanting you. Taehyung sat back down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. You make it hard to stay mad, Taehyung said, voice cracking. You make it hard to breathe, Jungkook whispered. They sat there, eyes locked, memories flashing between them like ghosts. Every late-night walk, every stolen glance. Every time Taehyung had brushed Jungkook's hand in passing and felt the thunder underneath. Every time Jungkook had caught him sleeping on the studio couch and wanted to kiss the world away. You know what hurts most? Taehyung asked finally. Jungkook didn't answer. That I was going to ask you to go public. Before all of this. Jungkook stared. I was going to tell Bang PD, tell the fans. I was ready to stop pretending. I was ready to fight for us. Jungkook covered his mouth, eyes wide. You were. I was. But now. Taehyung looked away. I don't know what I'm ready for anymore. They walked out of the cafe together, but the space between them felt wider than ever. Taehyung didn't reach for Jungkook's hand and Jungkook didn't dare ask. They walked in silence, past fans who didn't know what was happening, past stores that played their songs on repeat, past everything they built together while burying the truth. Until Jimin called. Taehyung answered. What, he said, voice flat. Jimin's voice crackled through the speaker. You guys need to come to the company. Now. Why? You're trending. Number 1. Someone leaked a video from the hotel. Jungkook and Taehyung both froze. What video? Jungkook asked. The one of you and the girl. The one where your Jimin stopped. Just come. Bang PD is furious. They ran. Side by side, hearts in sync for the first time in weeks. But this time it wasn't a secret between them anymore. The whole world was about to see what really happened behind the door Jungkook never meant to open. The elevator ride to the top floor of the HYBE building was excruciatingly slow. Neither Jungkook nor Taehyung spoke, but their silence wasn't mutual understanding, it was tension too dense to cut, too raw to escape. The stainless steel walls reflected their anxious faces in distorted fragments, like two strangers pretending to still be whole. The numbers above the door blinked upward in cold defiance. Jungkook's phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't need to check. The world had found out. Every fan account. Every media outlet. Every Twitter thread dissecting his life frame by frame. He could already hear the headlines clawing at him. Golden Magne's scandalous night, Taehyung and Jungkook rift confirmed? Who was the mystery woman? The doors opened with a sterile ding. Bang Si-hyuk stood waiting in the middle of the hallway. He looked, not furious. Not explosive. But betrayed. And that somehow felt worse. Inside. Now, Bang said without preamble. Jungkook and Taehyung entered the meeting room like condemned men. Jimin was already there, arms folded, jaw tight. Seokjin, on video call from his solo schedule, stared at them both with eyes sharp enough to cut steel. Namjoon leaned against the wall, flipping through his phone without looking up. Bang Si-hyuk took his seat, then tossed a remote across the table. A massive screen on the wall lit up. You've seen the photo. Now let's look at the video. Jungkook felt his throat close up. On screen, grainy hotel security footage rolled silently. It showed Jungkook entering the building with Mina. He looked slightly unsteady, drunk but not belligerent. She guided him toward the elevator. They laughed. She reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. Then, the moment that shattered it all. Jungkook turned to her. Smiled. He cupped her face. Their lips met slowly, deliberately. The video ended. Silence. Even the hum of the AC seemed to vanish. Jungkook couldn't meet anyone's eyes. I don't remember any of that, he said finally, voice hoarse. That doesn't matter, Bang Si-hyuk replied. The world remembers it now. You understand that, right? Taehyung stared at the screen like it had physically wounded him. Namjoon sighed. We're not here to debate memory. We're here to fix fallout. Fast. Seokjin's voice came from the monitor, colder than winter. You've put 7 years of hard work at risk for a girl you don't even know? I didn't choose her, Jungkook said, louder now. I wasn't in my right mind, eh? That's not what the world sees, Jimin snapped. The world sees a man betraying his closest friend. His teammate. On the same night they were supposed to reconcile. Taehyung finally spoke. Can we please not do this like I'm not in the room? Everyone froze. His voice wasn't angry, it was tired. Like something inside him had cracked and no one noticed until now. I know what it looked like, Taehyung continued, looking at Jungkook now. And I know what it wasn't. But I'm not just your friend. I'm not just your bandmate. And I'm not going to keep living in the shadows while you make mistakes I have to apologize for. I didn't ask you to apologize, Jungkook snapped. No. But I always do, don't I? Taehyung's voice broke. When Sasaengs find your address. When your tattoos go viral. When your girlfriend rumors explode. It's always me standing there smiling like it's part of the plan. Like I'm okay with being the placeholder while you run wild. Jungkook stood, chest heaving. You think I used you? I think you didn't care who got hurt as long as you weren't the one bleeding. Bang Si-hyuk slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The room went dead quiet. This isn't a lover's quarrel. This is a corporate crisis, Bang continued. Your faces are tied to billion-won deals, government campaigns, international reputation. And this little romantic implosion? It could take all of that down. I'll take the blame, Jungkook said instantly. Make a statement. Say it was a mistake. That I was drunk. That you what? Seekjin cut in. That you didn't mean to betray the only person who ever stood by you? Jungkook's jaw clenched. Taehyung stood. I'll make a statement. Jimin looked at him sharply. What? Taehyung walked toward the screen, now paused on the image of Jungkook holding Mina's face. I'll say we weren't together. That we were never a thing. That it's all fan imagination. No, Jungkook breathed. Yes, Taehyung said, louder. It's the only way. The only clean way. You get to keep your endorsements. I get to walk away with dignity. And the company gets its piece. I won't let you lie like that. You already lied with your actions. I'm just matching the tone. Bang Si-hyuk nodded slowly. If that's what it takes. No, Jungkook said again, louder this time. You don't get to erase us like we never mattered. Did we matter to you last night? Jungkook looked like he'd been punched. Namjoon stepped in, finally putting his phone away. This isn't just about feelings. This is about reality. The world saw something and the world will judge it. Either you manage the story or the story manages you. Then let it, Jungkook snapped. I'll tell them the truth. I was in love with someone I couldn't have. I broke down. I messed up. But don't ask him to erase himself. Taehyung was staring at him now, unreadable. You go public? Taehyung asked. If that's what it takes to make you stay, Jungkook said, and there was no hesitation in his voice. Yes. I would. Bang Si-hyuk sighed. And when the fans riot? When the death threats come? When the sponsors pull out? Then I'll deal with it. Taehyung stepped closer, almost nose to nose. Even if it means losing your career? Jungkook nodded. Even if it means losing everything but you. The room fell into silence again. Then Taehyung slapped him. Hard. Jungkook didn't move. You don't get to say that now, Taehyung whispered, tears brimming. Not after you already chose someone else. Then he walked out. Jungkook stood there, face stinging, heart collapsing in on itself. Bang Si-hyuk rose slowly. You've got 48 hours before the scandal burns down half the empire. Figure out what story you want to tell. Everyone left the room one by one until Jungkook was alone. He looked at the paused video on the screen. Then he looked at the door. And he whispered the only name that mattered. Taehyung. Taehyung didn't remember walking out of the HYB building. He didn't remember ignoring Jimin's calls or the silent black car that trailed him from a distance for security protocol. He only remembered his hands shaking, the burn on his cheek from where tears had dried without permission, and the echo of Jungkook's voice as it cracked beneath fluorescent light. Even if it means losing everything but you. But it was too late. He wasn't the kind of person who cried in public. Yet he found himself stumbling into a nearly empty stairwell behind an apartment complex in Itaewon, fingers gripping rusted railing as if it could hold his collapsing world. The air was thick with spring humidity and the scent of rain clung to the concrete like old perfume. Somewhere nearby, a cat meowed from a metal dumpster. Taehyung let his body slide down the wall and buried his face in his arms. It wasn't about the video. It was the fact that he hadn't been enough. That even after all the whispered late nights, the shared hoodies, the bruised knuckles from dancing until sunrise, and the words never said but always understood, Jungkook had still gone home with someone else. He heard his name before he saw the footsteps. Taehyung. It was Jimin, breathless, sweating, his hoodie clinging to his skin from the sprint. Taehyung didn't lift his head. Hyung, Jimin said, crouching next to him. Please come back with me. You shouldn't be here alone. Taehyung spoke without moving. Why does it hurt this much? Jimin didn't answer. Am I pathetic? Taehyung asked. For letting this destroy me? You're not pathetic, Jimin whispered. You're in love. Taehyung let out a bitter laugh. And what good has that ever done me? Jimin sat beside him. They were silent for a long while, the sounds of the city playing like a distant radio. When Taehyung finally looked up, his eyes were red, swollen, but dry. Did you know, he said quietly, that I was going to propose going public after our next comeback? Jimin's eyes widened. You never told me that. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted it to be a surprise. I thought if I just held on a little longer, maybe we wouldn't have to keep hiding. Maybe we could finally breathe. Jimin didn't speak. His fingers clenched into fists. But then that photo came out, Taehyung said, smiling without joy. And the air turned toxic. Back at Jungkook's apartment, the silence was louder than any explosion. He sat alone on the edge of his bed, watching the muted news feed flash headlines across the screen. BTS Jungkook caught in romantic controversy. Who is the mystery woman? Taehyung's reaction stuns fans. The internet wasn't just on fire, it was cannibalizing itself. Some fans blamed Mina. Some blamed Taehyung for being too cold. But most blamed Jungkook. And for once, he couldn't even fight it. He stared at the phone in his hand for what felt like years. No messages. No calls. Not from Taehyung. Not even from Jimin anymore. He stood suddenly, grabbing the nearest chair and slamming it into the wall. The sound of splintering would made him feel something for the first time in hours. He kicked over the side table. The lamp shattered. He screamed. A raw animal sound. And then silence again. He collapsed to the floor, surrounded by the ruins of what used to be their sanctuary. This was the apartment where Taehyung once painted stars on his ceiling at 3 a.m. because he said the room lacked sky. Where they curled up under one blanket during winter power cuts. Where they held each other after Japan tours ended in tears no one saw on camera. He crawled to the closet, reached behind the coats, and pulled out a box. Inside, Polaroids. Letters. Crumpled post-its with "buy eggs" and "don't forget to breathe" scrawled in 2 different handwritings. And at the bottom a velvet pouch containing a bracelet Taehyung had made out of their broken mic cords from 2019. The one he wore secretly during every tour. Jungkook clutched it like a lifeline. Then he stood. He would fix this. He didn't know how, but he had to try. 3 hours later, the Weverse post went up. No manager approval. No PR consultant. Just Jungkook and the truth. To those who follow me and to those who are hurting. I made a mistake. Not just the kind you read about in tabloids, but the kind that breaks the person you love. The kind you can't take back with apologies or promises. I won't make excuses. I was hurting, I was reckless, and I acted like someone I never wanted to become. Taehyung was never my shadow. He was my anchor. My light. The only constant in a life filled with chaos. We were more than friends. Maybe not in the way the world defines it. But in every look, every laugh, every quiet moment when cameras were off and the music stopped, he was mine. And I lost him. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know the truth. Please be kind. To him. To each other. Even when I couldn't be. The post exploded within seconds. Army around the world lit up with confusion, heartbreak, fury, support. Some fans cried. Some left. Some said they always knew. Others said they never wanted to know. But somewhere in Seoul, Taehyung read it. And something inside him cracked open. Jimin watched him silently. He didn't lie, Taehyung whispered. No, Jimin said. He finally told the truth. Taehyung folded the phone and stood. I need to see him. Meanwhile, chaos had erupted inside HYBE. PR departments were scrambling. Executives were shouting. Legal teams were debating whether to draft an apology or sue Jungkook for breach of protocol. Bang Si-hyuk, however, did none of that. He simply sat in his office, eyes on the screen. The boy had done it. He'd broken the machine from the inside. And yet, the honesty was magnetic. When the door flew open without a knock, he didn't even look up. Taehyung stepped in breathless. I won't let you punish him for telling the truth. Bang raised an eyebrow. That's not your decision. It is if you still want both of us in this company. There was a pause. Then Bang smirked. You always were the dangerous one. Taehyung didn't flinch. We're not products. We're people. And you either learn how to let us be both or you lose us. Outside the building, reporters were gathering. Inside Jungkook's apartment, Taehyung stood at the door. Jungkook opened it with tears already falling. Neither said anything at first. Then Taehyung walked in. Closed the door. And for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, they stood face to face, no lights, no audience, no pretending. Why now? Taehyung asked softly. Because I'd rather be hated for the truth than loved for the lie that cost me you. Taehyung stepped closer. What if we can't go back? Then we go forward, Jungkook said. Even if it's slow. Even if it hurts. Taehyung reached up and touched the side of Jungkook's face. You really are an idiot. I know. But you're my idiot. And finally, Jungkook smiled. They stood in silence, 2 fractured souls slowly remembering what it felt like to be whole. Shall I begin episode 5 next, taking the emotional resolution deeper into the public chaos and inner healing? The room was dark except for the steady, bluish glow of Jungkook's laptop screen. A low hum of anxious energy vibrated in the air, heavy and inescapable. Taehyung sat on the couch across from him, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. Neither had slept. Neither had spoken much since Taehyung walked back into that apartment and said, You're my idiot. It was the closest either of them had come to forgiveness, and yet the silence that followed carried a question neither had dared to voice aloud. Now what? Outside the building, the world was howling. Fandom wars had erupted globally. News anchors were already dissecting their statement in panel discussions like it was a geopolitical crisis. Their Wever servers were collapsing under the volume of comments. Billboard articles spun between sympathetic and scathing. Hashtags oscillated violently, hashtag protect Jungkook, hashtag we love Taehyung, hashtag OT7 forever, hashtag how could he. Taehyung finally broke the silence. Did you expect this much hate? Jungkook looked up slowly. His voice cracked when he replied, I expected worse. Taehyung leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes dark. I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive this again. You don't have to survive it alone. That's the part I'm not sure I believe anymore. Jungkook winced. But before he could respond, his phone vibrated across the table. The caller ID made both their hearts skip. Bang PD. He answered it with hesitant fingers. Come to the main building. Bring him. That was all Bang Si-hyuk said before hanging up. The ride to HYB felt longer than it was. They wore masks, hats, hoodies, but their eyes remained exposed and exhausted. Security escorted them through the back entrance while camera shutters exploded like landmines outside the glass. They entered the main conference room to find not just Bang PD, but a room full of stakeholders, legal advisors, and someone they didn't recognize, a sleek woman in her 40s with sharp cheekbones, red lipstick, and a voice like she'd swallowed law books for breakfast. She stood when they entered. My name is Jeon. I'm here to clean up the mess. Jungkook sat slowly. Taehyung didn't sit at all. Bang Si-hyuk gestured. Go ahead, Ms. G. She clicked a remote. The massive screen flickered to a paused video. A slowed clip of Jungkook's kiss with Mina. Enhanced, filtered, reanalyzed frame by frame. Let's be clear, she said, pacing. We can't undo what happened, but we can recontextualize it. Taehyung narrowed his eyes. You're not going to frame her, are you? I don't need to, she said. I just need to point out the truth. You were intoxicated. She was aware of your emotional state. You were vulnerable, not predatory, not dishonest, just broken. Jungkook shifted uncomfortably. Isn't that manipulating the narrative? Ji-yoona turned to him with piercing precision. That's called PR. Bang Si-hyuk interjected. We're not asking you to lie. We're asking you to live in the version of truth that allows you to survive. Taehyung finally sat, slowly, but he was staring at the table like it might collapse beneath the weight of their reality. Jungkook looked at him. What do you want to do? Taehyung didn't answer. Ji-yoona spoke again. We've prepared 2 routes. Route A, you both give a joint interview, curated, emotional, apologetic, but not confessional. We lean on brotherhood. Keep things ambiguous. Focus on healing and unity. Route B, Jungkook takes full responsibility. Taehyung stays silent but visible. We let time kill curiosity. And Route C, Taehyung said, voice cutting. There is no Route C, she said. There is now, he said. Route C is we tell the truth. All of it. The room went still. Bang Si-hyuk gave him a tired look. You're not ready for what that would cost. You're not ready for what it already has, Taehyung replied. Jungkook stood. I choose Route C. Ji-yoona raised an eyebrow. Then let me ask you both something. She walked closer, heels clicking ominously. Are you prepared to lose fans? Yes, Jungkook said. Are you prepared for your parents to receive threats? Jungkook flinched. Yes. She turned to Taehyung. Are you prepared for every future relationship to be reduced to this moment? Taehyung stared at her. I'm already reduced. Are you prepared to watch Jungkook collapse under a weight you put on him? No, Taehyung said. But I'll carry it with him. Jimin burst into the room at that moment like a storm. You're not doing this without me. Everyone turned. Jimin closed the door behind him and walked up to them. You're going to need someone to anchor this. Someone they trust. Someone who can remind the world that what we built was human. So if they're doing Route C, he looked at Bang Si-hyuk. Then I'm doing it too. What are you suggesting? Bang asked cautiously. A live broadcast, Jimin said. Tonight, the 3 of us. No script. No PR coaching. No edits. Just truth. Bang exhaled sharply. You're gambling with a kingdom. We already lost the crown, Taehyung said. Might as well keep our souls. 8 hours later, the world watched. Over 16 million viewers tuned in live. The set was minimal, just 3 chairs, soft lighting, no music. No HYB logos. No branding. Just Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook. The broadcast began in silence. Then Jimin spoke. "We didn't come here to save our image. We came here to save what's left of our hearts." Taehyung nodded. "For years we've been told who to be, how to smile, when to cry, but we're tired of scripting our lives." Jungkook leaned in, voice low but firm. "What you saw wasn't a scandal. It was a breakdown. My breakdown." They each told the story, raw, imperfect, real. Jimin explained how he watched them both fall apart from the sidelines. Helpless. Taehyung described the years of hiding, the fear of losing everything, the silence that buried them alive. Jungkook confessed to the night in question. The confusion, the alcohol, the emptiness he tried to fill, the shame, the moment he woke up and wished he hadn't. They didn't ask for forgiveness. They asked for understanding. And when Taehyung reached over halfway through the stream and placed his hand gently on Jungkook's, the comments section exploded. Some cheered, some wept, some screamed betrayal. Others called it bravery. But for the first time in months, they weren't hiding. When the stream ended, the silence that followed was heavier than applause. In the control room, Ji-Yoona whispered, "That was either genius or suicide." Bang Si-hyuk didn't respond, because in the days that followed, something strange happened. They didn't lose fans. They lost some, but they gained others. People who weren't there for perfection, but for pain, for honesty, for healing, for truth. And when they stood together on stage 2 weeks later for a music award they thought they'd lost their chance at, Taehyung reached out, right there in front of cameras, and laced his fingers through Jungkook's. Jungkook squeezed back, eyes stinging, and somewhere backstage Jimin smiled. Not because they were fixed, but because they were finally free. Jungkook had always known that the stage was the safest place to hide. Under the lights, with the crowd screaming and the beat vibrating through his bones, he could become someone untouchable, someone whole. But the stage they stood on now, weeks after the livestream shattered their silence, didn't feel like home. The award had felt hollow in his hands. Taehyung's fingers had closed around his, yes, but they were trembling. Not from affection. From the weight of everything unsaid between songs, between heartbeats, between breaths they had to fake. The applause faded into darkness. Then came reality. Backstage, the corridor buzzed with reporters, stylists, interns darting around like moths. Jungkook and Taehyung walked shoulder to shoulder, but the space between them might as well have been the Pacific. The other members were waiting in the green room. They hadn't spoken in full since the broadcast. Jungkook opened the door first. Namjoon was standing by the minibar, arms folded. Jeon sat with his leg crossed, sipping water like it was acid. Hoseok was pacing. Yoongi sat low on the couch, cap pulled over his eyes. Jimin was already seated, hands clasped, eyes unreadable. The tension thickened like smoke. Namjoon spoke first. "You should have told us before going live." His voice wasn't angry, it was sharp, controlled. The kind of anger that simmers, that plans its next move. Jungkook nodded once. "You're right." "No," Jeon cut in. "He's not just right. He's being polite. What you did wasn't brave. It was selfish." Taehyung stepped forward. "I told you we were going public. But not like that," Jeon snapped. "Not without us. Not without warning. You hijacked the story we all built together and made it about you." "It was about us," Jungkook said quietly. "No." Yoongi's voice was low, firm. "It was about damage control. You threw the truth out like a grenade and hoped it would kill the silence before it killed your career." Taehyung's jaw clenched. "So what would you have had us do? Keep pretending? Keep bleeding quietly in the background?" Hoseok finally turned to them. "You think you're the only ones who've ever wanted something we couldn't have? You think you're the only ones who sacrificed?" "No," Jungkook whispered. "I think we're the only ones who broke under it." Silence again, until Jimin stood. His voice wasn't loud, but it hit harder than any scream. I supported you because I love you both, because I saw how much pain you carried, and I couldn't keep watching you pretend. But you didn't just confess. You rewrote history. You made it seem like the group was a prison, like we were the reason you were dying inside. That's not what we meant, Taehyung said. But that's what the world heard, Jimin replied. And now we have to answer for it. Jungkook looked down. His fingers twitched. I'm sorry, he said. The words hung limp in the air. Namjoon stepped forward. You don't fix betrayal with a camera and an apology. You fix it by standing still and letting the people you hurt take their time. Then take it, Taehyung said. Take all the time you need. But we're not going back. Jeon stood, finally, and walked up to Taehyung. His face was stone. I protected you, he said. From the company. From the press. From your own damn hearts when you couldn't figure out what you wanted. We didn't ask for protection, Jungkook said, voice suddenly louder. No, Jeon said. You just needed it. Then he walked out. Yoongi followed without a word. Hoseok shook his head and muttered, You better be right about this? Before slipping through the door. Namjoon lingered, eyes fixed on Jungkook with a sadness that felt more like mourning than disappointment. Then he too left. Only Jimin remained. He sat down again, rubbing his hands together. You know what the hardest part was? He said softly. Not the lies. Not the backlash. The hardest part was watching you two finally be honest. And still look so miserable. Neither Jungkook nor Taehyung replied. You got what you wanted, Jimin continued. And now there's a crater where our team used to be. Will they ever forgive us? Jungkook asked. Jimin stared at him. That's the wrong question. Then what's the right one? Will you forgive yourselves? Jimin stood, walked to the door, and paused. Because if you don't, everything you did will be for nothing. He left, and the silence that followed was no longer thick with tension. It was empty. Later that night, Taehyung stood by the window of the apartment, looking out over Seoul. Jungkook came up behind him slowly, wrapping his arms around his waist. They stood like that for a long time. I thought telling the truth would set us free, Jungkook whispered. It did, Taehyung said. But freedom comes with a price. Do you regret it? Taehyung didn't answer right away. Then, I regret the timing, the hurt, but not the truth. They held each other until the sky turned gray, until the pain was quiet, not gone, but quiet. And when they fell asleep, it was not in triumph. It was in exhaustion, because the truth was never about winning. It was about finally resting. The storm arrived without warning. Not outside. The sky over Seoul remained deceptively calm, a veil of thick, unmoving gray. But inside the world Jungkook and Taehyung were trying to rebuild. For weeks, they had stayed hidden, working on new music in the studio, avoiding reporters, rebuilding fractured trust not just between them but with the people who still dared to stand beside them. HYBE had gone quieter. Legal threats had turned into muted negotiations. The live confession had changed everything, not only for fans but for internal politics. Even Bang Si-hyuk had stopped interfering, at least on the surface. It was Jimin who entered the studio that day without knocking, his face pale, phone in hand, voice shaking when he said, You need to see this. Jungkook took the phone. One notification. A video uploaded anonymously on an obscure Korean server, now going viral at lightning speed. He pressed play, and everything inside him froze. On screen was a dimly lit backstage hallway from 3 years ago. A camera's point of view, secretly recorded. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but the voices were unmistakable. Just stop acting like you're in love with him. A voice that belonged to Jeon snapped. I'm not acting, Jungkook's voice replied. There was a pause, a shuffle. Then Jeon again, lower. If this gets out, the label will bury you both. You think they won't? You're replaceable. Taehyung's voice came next, trembling. We're not hiding because of the fans. We're hiding because of you. And then, clearly, Jungkook whispering, They'll never forgive us if they find out you made us lie. The video ended abruptly. Black screen. No explanation. The room was silent. Taehyung stared ahead, unmoving. Jungkook's hands trembled around the phone. Jimin looked between them, horrified. His lips parted but no words came. Who the hell recorded that? Jungkook finally asked, barely above a whisper. Jimin's voice was strained. I don't know, but it's spreading like wildfire. Fans are confused, angry. Some are calling Jeon a traitor. Others are saying it was fake. It's not fake, Taehyung said. He turned toward Jungkook slowly, his face pale. Do you remember that day? Jungkook did. Too well. It had been after a concert in Tokyo. They'd almost been caught by a staff member slipping out of the same hotel room. Jeon had pulled them aside, furious, not just as a Hyung, but as the unofficial protector of BTS image. Jungkook remembered the hallway, the sting of betrayal, the way Taehyung had flinched when Jeon raised his voice, the silence that followed for weeks. They had buried that memory, together, and now someone had dug it up. I have to call him, Jungkook said. Jimin grabbed his arm. Don't. He'll think it's an ambush. He needs to explain. He doesn't need to explain anything, Taehyung said sharply. Jungkook turned. He lied to us, Tae. He protected us. By threatening us. They stared at each other. I'm not saying he was right, Taehyung said, softer now. But this video, whoever released it didn't do it to help us. Jimin nodded. They're trying to split you again. But the cracks had already begun to show. 2 hours later, the press had picked it up. Headlines multiplied like mold. Hidden audio of BTS member exposes internal betrayal. Jeon silenced Jungkook and Taehyung for years? Why did HYB let this happen? And then the final blow. An official statement from Jeon. No press conference. Just a letter. A calm, restrained letter that neither confirmed nor denied the authenticity of the recording, but offered this. I did what I thought was right to protect my brothers and everything we built. If I failed them in the process, I carry that alone. Taehyung stared at the screen, jaw tight. It's not enough. Jungkook stood. I'm going to see him. He won't open the door. Then I'll knock until he does. Jungkook. But he was already gone. The air outside was humid, sticky with late spring. As he stepped into the private elevator that would take him to Jin's penthouse, his heart was pounding in ways he hadn't felt since their debut. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and luxury. He knocked once, then twice. No answer. The third knock. Then a voice. You shouldn't be here. Jeon stood in the doorway. Older now. Calmer. Sadder. Jungkook didn't waste time. Why? Why what? Why did you threaten us? Why did you act like we were the problem? Jeon exhaled, stepping aside to let him in. You want the real answer or the one the company wanted me to give? The real one. They sat opposite each other in silence for a long time. I was scared, Jeon said. Not of you. Of what they do to you. Of what they do to us. Everything we worked for. Gone overnight. You think I didn't know that? Jungkook's voice cracked. You think I wasn't terrified every time I held his hand in a hallway without cameras? I think you were young, Jeon said. And love made you reckless. And I thought I was protecting you. You weren't, Jungkook whispered. You were silencing me. Jeon leaned forward. And now that the silence is broken, how does it feel? Jungkook didn't answer. Do they still look at you the same way in the building? Jeon asked. Do the staff smile the same way? Does the crowd cheer the same? Or do you feel it now? The shift. I'd rather be hated for the truth than loved for the lie. Would you still say that if the group breaks up? Jungkook froze. Jeon leaned back. There's talk. Boardroom talk. About the group's future. About damage control. About branding. Not official yet. But close. They'd disband us for this? They'd disband us because control is the currency. And you set the whole empire on fire. Jungkook stood. Then maybe it needed to burn. He left without another word. Back at the studio, Taehyung sat on the floor, legs crossed, staring at an old group photo on the wall. The one before the scandals. Before the lies. Before the pain. Jimin entered quietly. You okay? Taehyung didn't look up. Jungkook thinks we're fighting for freedom. But I think we're fighting ghosts. Jimin sat beside him. You still love him? Taehyung nodded. But love isn't the problem. What is? Taehyung turned. The world we're trying to love each other in. Outside, storm clouds finally broke. Rain fell heavy on the roof. And somewhere in the corner of the studio, the old speaker system sparked to life. Not from music, but from interference. A voice came through. Garbled. Digital. Then clearer. I warned you. Not all truths deserve the light. The message ended. Jungkook stared at the speaker, skin cold. It wasn't Jeon. It wasn't staff. It wasn't a fan. It was someone else. Someone who knew them too well. Someone who hadn't spoken in years. And the voice? It belonged to an ex-member they were all told to forget. He was coming back. And he wasn't coming alone. Taehyung sat with his back against the soundproof glass of Studio 3, the hum of abandoned electronics still buzzing faintly around him. Jimin had left hours ago, promising to check on the other members, promising to keep an eye on the narrative. Whatever that meant anymore. Jungkook hadn't returned since confronting Jeon. And the speaker, that damn speaker, remained silent since the last message, but its presence in the corner of the room now felt like a threat. Not mechanical. Personal. Taehyung's phone lit up. No message. Just a news notification. Ex-BTS trainee claims to have evidence BTS hid a member's departure. It was never my choice to leave. He didn't click it. He didn't need to, because he knew who it was. And so did Jungkook, who burst through the studio doors, eyes wide, chest heaving, hair soaked with rain. He's alive, Jungkook said. Taehyung looked up. Of course he is. No, Tae. He's here. In Seoul. And he's not just threatening to talk. He already is. They both stared at each other, years of memory flashing between them without needing to be spoken. His name was Han Ji-hoon, a name BTS fans were told to forget. Once a quiet, sharp-eyed trainee who was with them in the final months before debut. He'd disappeared without warning right before the launch. The company had released a vague statement about contract incompatibility and personal challenges. But that wasn't the full truth. And now Ji-hoon was ready to tell it. The live stream was unannounced. No press. No filters. No platform restrictions. It dropped like a bomb on every feed and news site across Korea and beyond. Han Ji-hoon sat in what looked like a hotel room. Hair longer now. Ice colder. But there was something familiar in his posture. The way he leaned forward, shoulders stiff, voice deliberate. He didn't blink when he spoke. They said I left. I didn't. I was pushed out. The chat exploded. He continued. I trained with them. I wrote songs with them. I slept on the same floor, bled in the same rehearsals, cried over the same hopeless dreams. But they erased me. Why? Because I didn't fit the image. Pause. Because I saw things I wasn't supposed to. Taehyung stood frozen as Jungkook grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. Ji-hoon's voice dropped lower. I saw the fights. I saw the tears. I saw the way the company manipulated the members into keeping secrets that didn't belong to them. And I saw how they threatened to kill careers before they even started. His eyes glinted. And I saw Jungkook and Taehyung together. Back then. Before they thought anyone knew. Jungkook sat down hard, his body suddenly cold. Taehyung said nothing. Ji-hoon's eyes didn't blink. They told me to shut up. I didn't. So they cut me out. Then he held up something. A flash drive. This contains conversations. Audio. Emails. Meeting transcripts. Proof that what the public thinks of BTS is a curated lie. And before you accuse me of revenge, let me say this. I never hated them. I hated what was done to them. To us. And then he smiled. This is the first of many. The stream ended. The silence it left behind was catastrophic. It wasn't just a scandal. It was a reckoning. The next morning, all 7 current BTS members were summoned to HYBE's top floor. No stylists, no managers, no assistants. Just them. And Bang Si-hyuk. The room felt like a courtroom. Bang didn't sit behind the long executive table. He stood in front of it, arms crossed, jaw tight. "I'm going to say this once," he began. "Whatever differences you've had, whatever ghosts you thought were buried, this is the moment to be honest. Because if we go into this fragmented, we won't survive it." No one spoke. Then Yoongi leaned forward. "What's actually on that drive?" Bang's voice was steel. "Enough. Enough to end us?" Namjoon asked. "Enough to make people question whether this group was ever really about music." That landed like a fist to the chest. Jean was next. "Then why don't we go public first? Get ahead of it." "Because the public doesn't trust us anymore," Bang replied. "Thanks to a certain confession livestream, every word we say now looks like spin." Jungkook's fist clenched on the table. "You told us to lie about Jihoon," he said. Bang looked at him. "You told us he was unstable, that he wasn't loyal. I told you what I had to protect the seven of you. From him or from truth?" Taehyung's voice cut through like glass. Everyone turned. Jean stood. "So what do we do?" Bang looked at all of them, and for the first time he didn't look like a CEO. He looked like a man in free fall. "You tell me," he said. Later, the group split. Jean, Yoongi, Hoseok, and Namjoon gathered in one of the private lounges. Jimin stayed with Taehyung and Jungkook in Studio 4. "I knew Jihoon would come back eventually," Jimin said. Jungkook turned. "You knew?" "I heard things," Jimin admitted. "After we debuted. Quiet things. About someone who felt used. Someone who saw too much. I didn't know it was him." Taehyung hadn't spoken since the meeting. Jungkook reached for his hand. Taehyung finally looked at him. "What if he's not the villain?" Jungkook blinked. "What if he's the only one who never lied?" That night, a second clip leaked from the drive. A conversation between two staffers, voices altered, but context clear. "Should we really let them keep seeing each other? They're harmless. As long as the fans never know. And if they find out? Then we do what we always do. We erase it." The backlash was instant. Hashtag let them speak. Hashtag justice for Jihoon. Hashtag BTS lies. Hashtag OT8 not 7. Fandoms fractured. Brands pulled deals. Interviews were cancelled. A petition was launched for HYBE to release an official response or resign. And in the middle of it all, Jungkook stared at the screen in his bedroom. Phone in hand, heart splitting open all over again. They weren't just fighting for love anymore. They were fighting for truth in a world built on performance. And someone they thought was long gone had just pulled back the curtain, and no one spoke when Jihoon entered the room. It wasn't a conference hall. It wasn't a stage. There were no lights, no cameras, no polished company backdrop. HYBE had arranged a neutral meeting space in a soundproof studio that hadn't been used in months. Dust still clung to the corners, the air slightly stale, like even the walls had forgotten what it meant to hold the weight of voices that mattered. All 7 BTS members sat in a semicircle, not as performers, not even as brothers, but as witnesses to something that had long festered in the shadows. Jihoon walked in with no entourage, no fanfare, no theatrics. Just a small folder in his hand and eyes that no longer resembled the boy who once trained beside them. Jungkook didn't blink. Taehyung leaned forward, fingers laced so tightly they turned white. Jimin's breath caught. Namjoon was the first to speak. "You didn't have to do this way." Jihoon looked at him. "I did. Because when I left, no one said anything. And now that I'm back, you want me to whisper?" Yoongi leaned forward. "What is it you want?" "Closure," Jihoon said simply. "And accountability." Jean exhaled. "You think ruining our careers is accountability?" "I think silencing someone for years is violence," Jihoon replied. There was a pause. The air felt like it had cracked in half. Jungkook finally stood. "I want to hear it," he said. "All of it." Jihoon turned to him, eyes flickering with something more complex than anger. "Pain, memory, guilt. You were never the villain," Jihoon said. "You were a kid. So was I." Taehyung's voice came quiet. "What happened, Jihoon?" Jihoon opened the folder. Inside were transcripts, photos, email printouts. One by one, he laid them on the coffee table like evidence in a trial no one agreed to attend. This is from the week before your debut, he said. Meeting notes between Bang PD, the creative director, and 2 board members. They were finalizing choreography decisions, but what's buried in here is this. He pointed to a line, bolded with a red marker. Issue. Member number 8 continues to exhibit excessive closeness to members 6 and 7. Management agrees it may compromise group image. Recommendation. Exit before official announcement. Member 6 was Taehyung, Jihoon said. Member 7 was Jungkook. And you, Namjoon said slowly, were number 8. I was told I didn't have the stage presence, Jihoon said. That I was replaceable. But that was never the reason. The reason was that I saw something real. And they thought I'd speak. Silence. No one moved. Then Jihoon reached into his pocket and pulled out a small voice recorder. This is the audio from the night before I left. A call between me and someone in this room. He pressed play. The voice was familiar. I'm sorry, Jihoon. I tried. But they said if you don't go, they'll cut Taehyung instead. Can't lose him. Please understand. Taehyung's face drained of color. The voice was unmistakably Jimin's. Everyone turned. Jimin looked like he'd been shot. He choked. That's not how it happened. It's exactly how it happened, Jihoon said quietly. You chose him. And I don't blame you. I would have chosen him too. But don't pretend you didn't sacrifice me for it. Tears formed in Jimin's eyes. I was a kid, he said. I didn't know what to do. You knew enough to say yes. Jungkook stood between them. Enough. This isn't helping. No, Jihoon said. It is. Because for the first time, you're all hearing what you never let yourselves say. Jimin turned to Taehyung, voice shaking. I didn't know they would actually. I thought it was just a threat. I never meant. Taehyung didn't look at him. He stood, walked to Jihoon, and hugged him. The room froze. I'm sorry, Taehyung whispered. I should have fought for you. Jihoon stood there, stiff. Then his arms slowly wrapped around Taehyung's frame. His breath trembled. Jungkook stepped forward. Can you forgive us? Jihoon pulled away, looked at him. I already did. That's why I came back. Not to ruin you. To set the story straight. Jin's voice cracked. Then why go public? Because if I didn't, you would have kept pretending I never existed. Namjoon looked at the table full of evidence. What do you want us to do now? Jihoon smiled sadly. Tell them the truth. All of it. Together. Or not at all. He turned to leave. Then paused. Looked back at Jungkook and Taehyung. And for what it's worth, I hope you make it. Even now. He left. And the room collapsed into silence again. No one moved. Then Taehyung turned to Jimin. I would have gone in your place, he said. Why didn't you tell me? Jimin cried. I thought I was protecting you. You weren't, Taehyung said. You were protecting yourself. And I can't hate you for that. But I can't pretend it didn't hurt. Jimin dropped to his knees. And Jungkook, eyes wet, sank beside him. Not to blame. Not to scold. But to hold him. Hours later, they sat together on the floor. No manager. No scripts. Just 7 broken boys trying to remember how it all began. And maybe for the first time how it should have. The stage was silent. Not dark, just silent. The lights hadn't yet gone up, but the anticipation hung thick in the air. No music. No intro video. No dramatic countdown. Just silence. The kind that begged to be broken. Jungkook stood behind the curtain, palms clammy, heartbeat crawling up his throat. Taehyung was beside him, silent but not cold. On his left, Jimin adjusted the mic clip to his jacket. His eyes were red but steady. In the dressing room minutes earlier, the 7 of them had stood in a quiet circle. No makeup artists. No stylists. No choreography briefing. Namjoon had spoken first. We say it. All of it. Or we say nothing. No one disagreed. Jeon had been the last to nod. So they stood now not as BTS, not as idols, not even as performers. Just as people. The curtain rose. The audience wasn't screaming. They were waiting. The arena was packed. Tens of thousands of faces looked back at them, holding breath, holding judgment, holding pain and confusion and desperate hope. A live global stream broadcasted in 15 languages. Millions were watching. The silence still hadn't broken. Then Jungkook stepped forward and spoke. "We're not here to perform tonight," he said softly. "We're here to tell the truth." A stir. A tremble across the sea of lightsticks. Taehyung stepped up next. "For years, we gave you music. We gave you our best. But we didn't give you everything. Some of it, we hid. Some of it was taken. Some of it we didn't know how to say." Namjoon took the center next. "We had a dream. And sometimes we compromised that dream to survive. We allowed silence. We made choices that hurt people. Jeon was one of them. And we're done pretending he never existed." Gasps in the crowd. A camera panned to fans covering their mouths. Jimin's voice broke slightly. "I made a choice when I was a teenager that cost us someone we loved. I thought I was protecting our group. I ended up protecting the lie." He turned toward the crowd. "I'm sorry." Yoongi stepped in. "We're not just sorry. We're responsible. For the silence. For the fear. For the way we let others control our story." Jeon spoke slowly. "I believed I was shielding them. But I realize now. I was enabling the system that erased people." Then Hoseok raised his mic. "If you need to walk away from us after this, we understand. But don't walk away thinking we never cared. We did. We just didn't always know how to show it." Finally, Jungkook stepped back up. "There's one more thing." The arena held its breath. "For years, people have speculated about my relationship with Taehyung. Some called it fan service. Some called it scandal." He looked at Taehyung. Taehyung looked back. "We call it love," Jungkook said. A tidal wave of emotion ripped through the crowd. "We didn't always know how to love each other in public. We made mistakes. We hurt each other. But we survived it. Together." Taehyung took the mic. "We're not asking you to approve. We're not asking you to cheer. We're asking you to let us be real." They stepped back. And the silence returned. But it was different this time. Not cold. Not condemning. It was reverent. Then a single voice in the crowd shouted, "We love you." And then another. And another. A wave of light sticks began to rise, one by one, like fireflies igniting the dark. They didn't perform that night. They just stood there. 7 men. Burned. Scarred. Honest. And still standing. After the show, the world didn't end. It shifted. Some fans left. Others stayed. Brands hesitated. But the music trended again. Streams surged. People began talking not about scandals, but about truth. Jeon released his own song a week later. It was raw. Beautiful. Forgiving. In the music video, 7 silhouettes stood in the distance. They never turned. But the world knew who they were. Taehyung and Jungkook returned to the studio together. Not to please a company. Not to hide. But to write something new. Not just a song. A story. Their own. And this time every line was theirs. The silence was gone. And in its place was freedom.